there everybody and welcome. I'm Cindy Daychek with Queen Bee Creations, and today's video is a little bit different. I'm going to do multiple little projects very quickly to be able to demonstrate something that a lot of y'all have been asking me about, and that is how to take thrifted items, or I get donated items, or from garage sales, estate sales, auctions. I get a lot of stuff from auctions. So how do I take those items and just kind of upcycle them so that I can sell them in my shop or use them in my home? And so I am going to do a bunch of little projects of things that I have got legitimately hanging out here in the shop waiting for me to transform them. Now, some of these are going to be a bigger transformation. Some of them is just as simple as slapping on paint. But I think that sometimes that's important for you to see too. If you only see the end product, very often your brain may be making the process of taking it from where it was to where it ends up and complicating it, making it think, I did way more than I did. So I'm going to kind of pull back the curtain and show you some of these items that I have purchased or have been donated that I've got sitting here in the shop, and what I do to turn them around to be able to ultimately sell them in the front of the house. So hopefully you stick with me and you get some good ideas, some inspiration, and you start looking at a lot of the things that you think are old and tired in your home. And you learn some quick tips for being able to zhuzh them up so you can use them again and maybe love them again. So first up, as an example, I am going to take this mirror. So it has hanging hardware, either up and right or side to side, but it is definitely old looking. Okay, it needs a good clean too, but it's old looking, it's tired. It doesn't really go, a lot of people aren't using this kind of mottled metallic decor anymore. So the first thing, and I gotta tell you, I looked to see whether or not I could get the backing off of this because I don't wanna be painting all those little struts around the mirror and going crazy, just kind of driving myself nuts unnecessarily. I do enough things to drive myself crazy without looking for extras. So it did have where I could lift this off. So here's my plan, and I'm going to be doing most of this off camera because it's smelly, but I am just going to simply lift these tabs up, take this whole mirror out, clean it, give it a good cleaning, and I am going to take the metal frame and I am going to spray paint it with Rust-Oleum for metal paint in a matte black, and I'm going to do 2 coats. So 2 coats should do it, and then I'll show you a little bit what I do to kind of perk it up from just that flat black before it hits the shop. But really, this mirror, it's in the magic. It's the paint the frame of it and clean it up a little bit, and we're probably good to go. So I'm gonna go spray paint, and then I'll come back at you. Just wanted to show you quickly because sometimes plans change. That was my intent, what I shared with you. But as I open it off, I took the backing out. This is the actual mirror backing. This sucker is hot glued down into this frame. So there is no way that I'm going to be able to safely remove it. And because it's angle cut in here, it's not worth trying. So I could have taken my heat gun, try and, heat up the glue without cracking the glass. But I was looking for a quick flip, not a really lengthy flip. So it's not worth it to do that. So I'm going to put the backing back on. It's like not even going there. And anchor it back down, and then I am going to cover all of the mirror with some tape and some paper, so that when I spray paint, it's going to go on the tape and the paper and not on the mirror. So I save myself the aggravation of trying to scrape off any of the paint or the overflow. I may still have a little bit, who knows, but it's gonna be infinitely easier to go that route than any way else. So I'm gonna try and stick papers underneath, glue everything down so that I can spray paint it that way. And it would have been easier the other way for me, but it doesn't always work out that way. So I'm still off to spray paint after I do some taping. Okay, this is our mirror. So much better looking now. The only thing that I want to do is it's a little bit stark, so I do want to add in a little bit of color, and I'm going to do that with some gold Rub and Buff. Now I've got two colors of Rub and Buff, antique gold and gold leaf, and you can tell this one's used a lot more. So the antique gold I tend to use a lot more. It's darker in color. The gold leaf, still pretty dark right now, actually. So we're gonna use it because I want to show. Usually the best, easiest way to do this is to take a little bit of it on your fingertip and then just run that down the edge of your product a little bit. So you're not looking at adding tons, you're just looking for a little bit of an accent here and there. And I just get the best results doing it with my fingers. So I just like to add a bit here and there to just kind of pick it up, add a little bit of some detailing, a little bit of an accent to it. And just kind of adds a little bit more interest. Right. Especially on some of these pieces that are just kind of hanging out there. Now this part's really rough, so I'm gonna take my finger back whenever I just have a little bit of product on my finger and just kind of rub it over the top so that it hits some of the highs and rather than kind of coating it all over. Let me just kind of show you close up a little bit of that gold accent. I'm just going to carry on, do that over the whole piece. This self-seals, done. One project, one makeover, out of the way. My next thrift flip is this big solid rolling pin. Now this is a one-piece rolling pin, so I love these. They don't have the spool going through them. It's a lovely size. I love these as decor, but we're gonna actually make this so it can also be functional. Use it just as decor or functional, but I love picking these up from the thrift shop. And again, like $3.99 maybe. What I do have for this project, and I've done an earlier video with 3 different treatments of rolling pins to turn them into decor. So I'm gonna do this one just a little bit different. I do have the newsprint decoupage paper from Jamie Ray Vintage. So that's available on queenbeecreationshome.com if you want. And I'm going to decoupage it on. Now what I do want to do is just kind of check and see width-wise. I think I might want to kind of come in here and exactly how long. So I'm kind of coming up to maybe about there. All right. So I'm going to start off by just roughly cutting out. And I can sort of see through the backing of this where some of the little adverts are. So I'm gonna cut all the way up so that I don't ruin all of my paper and I can use it later. So I still have all of this side in its gloriousness that I can use these ads. And I'm not gonna need these all the way up either. So if I roll this up, I am up to maybe there. Okay. Let me just kind of mark that off a little bit. Yeah, that gives me more than enough. So what I have for this, okay, that's my easy cutting. And then it still gives me all this paper too. Okay, let's put that off to the side. So I have this left a little bit longer on both ends, but I'm going to be able to sand those edges off, and I think that's going to be an easier way to go than trying to cut it perfectly straight and getting it lined up. So could be the easy way, could be the lazy way, one or the other. I'm going with easy. So what I do have is I have Mod Podge, and this is dishwasher safe Mod Podge. Not that we're going to put our wooden rolling pin into the dishwasher, but if we were using it, we may want to be able to take a wet cloth, wipe it off. So I do want to have a sealant on there that's going to help protect it. So I am just going to use a sponge brush that is wider than my opening, of course. And I'm going to brush this on. Now, I want to have a fair bit of it on here just because this isn't a glossy surface. This isn't like glass or metal. And I'm going to try and get it all the way around. Okay, that looks glossy all the way around, so I think I've got that covered. And I want to make sure I have those edges. All right, let's see. All right, so I want to roll it to my rough edge first and then out to my straight edge, and then just try and smooth it out a little bit. Rolling pin has had overnight to dry, and all that I'm looking at doing is sanding off these edges, and easiest with a sanding block, but you can do it with a piece of paper, and just kind of go along the edge, and the paper will just start to automatically separate. So it just gives you a nice clean line. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do it to the other end too. But I just want to show you, I do want to just kind of sand it down in some spots, kind of age it a little bit. I don't want it to look absolutely perfect. You know, we went with like the old paper. We have a bit of the wood peeking through. I'd like it to kind of have a bit of that age. So I'm just going to get this all sanded up, and then I'm going to bring you back for the final step. I have a little bit of a something I want to do for the final step. So I'll come back once the sanding's done so y'all don't listen to that noise. I've got this all sanded down and wiped down. Now what I want to do is just kind of antique it a little bit, deal with the wood on the ends. And so I'm going to take that same dishwasher safe and toxic free, just checking, sealant. Okay, that's going to be enough. And I just want to color it a little bit. Now, I don't want to add just any old paint into it because then it takes away from being food safe. So what I do have here is Lantern, which is the black color of milk paint from Sweet Pickins. And I'm just going to take a little bit to start. And I'm just adding it in here because the Sweet Pickins milk paint is food grade. So it is bio-certified. And so we can, in fact, mix it in. I'm not looking for a major dark color. You could certainly take a brown. I just happen to have black on hand. And I'm just mixing it up, and I'm going to use it. It's just kind of a light gray. It's just going to be a pale gray to seal off my wood, seal off the ends, and I want to reseal the rest of the rolling pin as well, because since I sanded it, I've kind of exposed some of that paper again. So I'm just going to seal the edges to start with right now, and then when they're dry, I'll go and I'll seal the body of it, and then our rolling pin is done. All right, the next little thrifted item was this little wooden bucket. It's old, it's cracked, it's great. So again, obviously looks like a duck or a goose or something. It had this really aged, icky looking metal band tacked around it in 2 spots. I've taken it off. I'm planning on putting it back, but there's no way I was going to paint it to avoid that. And just for a change, I'm thinking I'm going to paint it in Hay Sailor. So I'm going to use a navy, and God knows I haven't used this in so long. This is all just plugged right up. So all I'm going to do is paint this 2 coats in Hay Sailor, and then I'm going to come back at you. So nice quick little flips. We're just going to give it 2 quick coats, get it down into all of those grooves, all of those cracks. And this is an old piece, so it's got a lot of them. So we're just going to get 2 coats on it, and then I'll come back at you. While my duck, goose, I think it's more of a goose, I don't know. While it's drying, I want to take a look at seeing if I can clean this up a little bit. I'm thinking the contrast of kind of this copper, but brightened up a little bit, will look better against that. Shake it up first against that navy. So I just want to get off a little bit of the tarnish. I'm not sweating whether or not it's all perfectly cleaned up or not. So I'm not going to agonize over it, but if I can get some of that off. And I'm just using a little bit of Barkeeper's Friend. So I find that works great for cleaning things up a little bit. And yeah, so you can see already, this is where I've started to clean it up versus what it looked like beforehand. So I am going to be able to use this to get it a little bit brighter, get some of the grunge cleaned off. I don't care if it's all cleaned off, so whatever comes off in kind of some quick, easy passes through my cloth, I'm good with, and then the rest can just stay on there. I'm okay with that. Okay, our little bucket, planter, I'm gonna call it planter, is done. Now, I only did 1 coat of the blue, of the Hay Sailor, because I decided I liked the streakiness and I liked the wood underneath it. So what I'm gonna do is just lightly distress it overall. So over the whole piece, just to kind of smooth out a little bit of it. And then I am going to distress it more in spots to expose some of that wood. So my thought is, I like the rustic nature of it. I definitely want to, I'll take a wet cloth to the little eyeballs to reveal those. So the wet cloth will reactivate the DIY paint and remove it. So it's gonna be the easiest way to get it off. But I'm gonna do some heavy distressing on it. And then I'm going to seal the whole thing with Big Top. Because this is a planter, I wanted something a little bit more than just a wax to be able to potentially seal it in case people are putting plants in it. But they could use it for other things. I think this would be super cute, even in the summer on your tabletop with condiments in it outside, or all of your cutlery wrapped up in your napkins. I think there's a lot that you could do with this. It's super, super wonderful. So I'm gonna continue on with the distressing so you don't have to hear the sandpaper grating. And then I'm gonna seal it up with the Big Top, and then we'll come back for the next step. Okay, he's all sealed up, and I love this with that amount of distressing. This kind of red colored wood showing through. I really like that, the amount of that. So, I mean, you do as much as you do, but because he had like those nice glass eyes, I made sure that they were cleaned off and they were showing. Now, the last touch on this one is to take these bands that we sort of cleaned, right? They're much brighter, and you can see that they're really gonna show up against this. So there are two lengths of these. Let me make sure I'm starting with the proper one. So the shorter one, of course, is gonna be around the bottom because it's smaller, because this decreases in size. So I wanna start this first one at the back, but the spot that it has for it, I don't want to put one of my tacks in yet because I want to tack the last piece of it in there. So I'm going to kind of start further along. And I did save a bunch of the tacks. They might be a little squished, but straighten them out. Use them again. In the spirit of thrifting. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back over where there were existing holes in my copper banding. Put my I brought a hammer out, but I think that I'm able to do this just with my thumb, to tell you the truth. All right. So all I'm gonna do, use my hammer when I need to. Like there, that one's a little tougher. And just go around, tacking it in place. So I'm gonna do that with both of my bands, getting them curving down, do my bands around it, and then this one's done. Nice, quick, easy little update. Perfect. The final quick little project in our thrift flip. So the final little project in our thrift flip video here is this little corner shelf. Now, these were really common in the grandma houses and that kind of stuff. They just look really old, heavy, tired, but they are infinitely practical. People can use these. People do love using these. They just don't like them in brown. So all I am going to do for this is I'm going to take my DIY bead board and I'm going to paint this baby out with at least 2 coats. Sometimes these take 3 or maybe 2 and a touch up just because of the dark wood, but I'm going to paint it out, and I do paint, so the inside of all these little kind of open carvings, these little fretwork places, I paint those too. So that's why I have a smaller paintbrush, just so that I could do it. I mean, if you've got a sprayer and you want to do it, you can make quick work of this, and then you're just you're just lining up a bunch of projects and doing a little bit of production work. I don't have a sprayer. I do everything by hand. So if you're like me, you're just gonna take a smaller brush, you're just gonna go over it and do 2 to 3 coats of this. And then we're gonna do some distressing. So then we'll come back and we'll do some distressing together, but really super easy. Put on some of your favorite music, put on a book on tape, listen to a movie. I mean, whatever you wanna do, just have some fun with it. Super quick, super easy. Let's lighten and brighten it up. I'll be back. I'll be back shortly. Okay, we've got a couple of coats, and I would say 2 coats of the DIY beadboard, and then maybe just a little bit of a touch up here and there, which probably isn't necessary given that I'm going to distress it, but you know. So for this is like a 320 grit sandpaper, and this is a really worn little sanding block. So I'm not using, you know, like a 60 or 40. I'm just really looking to knock off just a little bit in the flat areas, just to make it smooth. Not that people go around touching their shelving all the time, but I don't know, it's just a personal preference of mine. So I just kind of take this over the flat surfaces to kind of just smooth it out a little bit. It's just nicer to the touch. And then I want to do all the edging. So here I want to reveal that dark brown underneath. So here I'm just looking at edges. So starting to highlight that dark brown color underneath, giving it that light distress look. And it just really brings out some of the lines of the piece more than anything else, right? I mean, it's got all of those curlicues and those curves, and you want to do that. So I'm going to carry on doing that, so you don't have to listen to this all the time. And then I am going to wax it with clear wax from DIY. So I'm just going to use my old chip brush. I'm going to apply the wax all over, wipe it down to remove any excess, and then let it dry. And once it's dry, I can then choose to buff it or not. You don't have to buff it. I will probably do a light buffing, give it a little bit of sheen, but I'm not looking for a high gloss finish here, so I'm not going to do major polishing or buffing on this piece. I wanted a little bit rustic, a little bit, you know, cottage country. But you can see instantly just grabbing some of these old dark pieces from the thrift store or from an estate sale or something, instantly just gives it new life. You know, you could do this in, you know, a little kid's room, and you could paint it, you know, according to whatever color their room is. So, you know, if they're really into action figures, they could use this to display it, you know, piggy banks, or, you know, whatever they're into is just a cute little display area in the corner of their room, which tends to be unused space anyway. So I love picking these up just because they can provide just a little bit of something in an area that is going to look kind of bare or barren. And again, with a little bit of paint, zhuzhes them right up and takes them from looking really old and tired, which is what this is all about. So I hope that today you got 4 different ideas and totally different techniques for being able to take some old thrifted items, be able to upcycle them a little bit, give them a little bit new life. I'll take a couple of pics for you to get another last look at each of them, but I hope it inspires you to be able to look at maybe some items that are floating around in your home, in your crawl space, tucked away in a closet somewhere, and a way to be able to just do a couple of quick little touches to them to give them new life and give them new use. That's what it's all about. Save the landfills and get some practical use out of some items. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you got some good ideas, a little bit of inspiration. Let me know if you want to see a little bit more upcycle or thrift flip videos. More than happy to do them because I'm doing them in the shop anyway. So if you'd like to come along on a journey, more than happy to take you along. Until then, take care.